Welcome to another Terry McMusic video. Today we're delving into the roots of British rock music, starting from the 1960s. A time of cultural revolution, social upheaval, and most importantly, a time when the music landscape was forever changed by the emergence of a sound that was raw, rebellious, and quintessentially British. British rock music is not just a genre, it's a phenomenon. It's a groundbreaking movement that has influenced and shaped the global music scene for over 6 decades. To understand its significance, it's essential to look beyond the music itself and consider the cultural and societal changes that were occurring in Britain at the time. The 1960s were a time of immense change. The post-war generation was coming of age, and with them came a new wave of ideas, attitudes, and of course music. It was during this time that the rock music, a genre previously dominated by American artists, started to gain traction in Britain. The British interpretation of rock was different though. It was edgier, louder, and more rebellious. It was a reflection of the changing times and the growing discontent among the youth. The rise of British rock was not just a musical revolution, it was a social and cultural one as well. It challenged the status quo, broke down barriers, and gave a voice to a generation that was eager to make their mark on the world. It was more than just music. It was a form of expression, a way of life. From the Liverpool sound of the Beatles, who took the world by storm with their innovative style and catchy tunes, to the gritty, raw energy of the Rolling Stones, British rock has produced some of the most influential and enduring bands in music history. This genre has not only left an indelible mark on the music industry, but also on society as a whole. From the Beatles to the Rolling Stones, let's embark on a journey to explore the fascinating world of British rock. The 1960s, a decade that witnessed the birth and rise of British rock music. This era was a veritable breeding ground for innovative bands and solo artists who would redefine the musical landscape, not just in Britain, but across the globe. Let's begin with the Beatles, arguably the most influential band in the history of rock music. Hailing from Liverpool, their innovative songwriting and mastery of diverse musical styles, from pop ballads to psychedelic rock, captivated audiences worldwide. Their album, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, is often hailed as one of the greatest albums of all time, showcasing their inventive use of the recording studio as an instrument itself. Then we have the Rolling Stones, whose raw, bluesy sound, provocative lyrics, and rebellious image contrasted sharply with the clean-cut Beatles. Their album Beggar's Banquet marked a return to their blues roots and is considered a classic of the genre. We can't forget The Who, known for their explosive live performances, and the concept album Tommy. This band pushed boundaries and took rock music to new heights of theatricality and musicianship. And then, there's the individual artists. The 1960s saw the rise of guitar virtuoso Eric Clapton, first with the Yardbirds and later with Cream. His skill and innovation have since earned him the title God in the world of guitar. Let's not forget the enigmatic Bob Dylan. Although American, he heavily influenced the British rock scene. His poetic lyrics and folk rock sound were a significant influence on many British rock musicians. And of course, the indomitable David Bowie, who began his musical journey in the 60s, although his true breakthrough didn't come until the following decade. His early work, however, laid the groundwork for his future genre-bending exploits. These artists and bands didn't just create music, they created a movement. British rock music of the 1960s was marked by a spirit of experimentation and a defiance of convention. It was a reflection of the societal changes happening at the time, a youth culture seeking to assert itself, to challenge the status quo, and to express its hopes, dreams, and frustrations through music. Across the globe, British rock was a sensation. It was a British invasion of a different kind, as bands like the Beatles and the Rolling Stones dominated international charts and airwaves. They brought a distinctly British sound and sensibility to the global stage, influencing countless musicians and shaping the course of popular music for decades to come. The 1960s laid the foundation for the British rock music scene, setting the stage for the next decade of innovation and evolution. But British rock music was more than just a genre, it was a cultural phenomenon. It shook the societal norms to their core and influenced every nook and cranny of the culture, from fashion and language to social attitudes. As the British rock scene exploded in the 60s, it brought about a seismic shift in fashion. The rock stars of the era were not just musicians, but style icons. Trendsetters like Mick Jagger and David Bowie pushed the boundaries of what was considered acceptable attire. They donned flamboyant clothing, brightly colored suits, and daring makeup, encouraging the youth to express themselves freely through their wardrobe. This period saw a surge in eclectic and unconventional fashion choices, which was a stark departure from the conservative styles of the previous decade. But the influence didn't stop at fashion. The language, the lingo of the youth, was also deeply impacted. British rock lyrics were rich with unique slang and colloquialisms, which soon found their way into everyday conversation. Phrases like groovy, far out, and out of sight became staples of the vernacular, reflecting the free-spirited and rebellious ethos of the rock scene. Moreover, British rock music played a pivotal role in shaping social attitudes. The lyrics often challenged societal norms, questioned authority, and championed individual freedom. They gave a voice to the burgeoning youth movement and counterculture of the 60s, sparking discussions on topics like civil rights, peace, and personal liberation. This cultural revolution was not confined to the shores of Britain. As British rock music spread across the globe, it carried with it these shifts in fashion, language, and social attitudes, influencing cultures far and wide. The British rock music scene was not just about music, it was a symbol of rebellion, freedom, and individuality. It was a powerful force that left an indelible mark on society, pushing boundaries and challenging the status quo. And its impact is still felt today, echoing through our culture in myriad ways. As we step into the 1970s, British rock music took on new forms and reached new heights. As we journey through this exciting era, we encounter the birth of progressive rock, a genre that took rock music to new levels of complexity and sophistication. Bands like Yes, King Crimson, and Genesis led the charge, creating epic compositions that challenged the notion of what a rock song could be. They pushed the boundaries with intricate arrangements, elaborate concept albums, and a fusion of styles that brought in elements of classical music, jazz, and even folk. From Yes's Close to the Edge to Genesis's Selling England by the Pound, these bands were not afraid to experiment and innovate, shaping the future of rock music in the process. Just as progressive rock was pushing rock music towards complexity, glam rock emerged to celebrate the theatrical, the flamboyant, and the outrageous. With its roots in the 60s counterculture and the artistic movement of the time, glam rock brought a new emphasis on style and spectacle to the rock scene. Artists like David Bowie and Mark Bolan of T-Rex became icons of the genre, combining rock music with a visually striking and performative style. Bowie's Ziggy Stardust and T-Rex's Electric Warrior became symbols of this audacious and vibrant era, proving that rock music could be as much about the image as it was about the sound. As the 70s progressed, punk rock exploded onto the scene, delivering a raw and rebellious counterpoint to the more elaborate styles of progressive and glam rock. Bands like the Sex Pistols and The Clash embodied the punk ethos of DIY spirit and anti-establishment sentiment, delivering short, fast, hard-hitting songs that resonated with a disaffected youth. The Sex Pistols, Never Mind the Bollocks, Here's the Sex Pistols, and The Clash's London Calling are classic punk albums that captured the spirit of the time, challenging the status quo and forever changing the face of rock music. But it wasn't all about these new subgenres. The 70s also saw the continued success of more traditional rock bands. Artists like Led Zeppelin and the Rolling Stones dominated the charts, creating some of the most enduring and iconic rock music of all time. Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven and the Rolling Stones' Exile on Main Synth are testament to the enduring appeal of rock music, even as it evolved and diversified. The 1970s saw British rock music diversify and expand, pushing the boundaries of what was considered rock music. This was an era of experimentation and innovation, a time when British rock music truly came into its own. And the influence of these bands and artists, their albums and songs, can still be felt today, echoing through the annals of rock history and continuing to inspire new generations of musicians. Like the 60s, the 70s were a time of cultural and social change, and British rock music was at the forefront. This decade saw the rise of a musical revolution that reverberated beyond the realms of sound waves, deeply influencing society's fashion, language, and social attitudes. In the realm of fashion, British rock music birthed a unique sartorial statement. The flamboyant and outrageous costumes of glam rock stars like David Bowie and Freddie Mercury went against conventional norms, encouraging fans to express their individuality through clothing. It was a radical shift from the buttoned-up, conservative styles of the previous decade. This era's fashion was unapologetically bold, showcasing gender fluidity and self-expression. Language, too, was not left untouched. British rock music introduced new slang and expressions into everyday conversation. Words like groovy, far out, and heavy became part of the global lexicon, thanks to the lyrics of rock anthems. These expressions not only added colour to conversations, but also encapsulated the free-spirited ethos of the era. The social attitudes of the time were significantly shaped by the punk movement. Punk rock, with its raw energy and rebellious lyrics, was a reaction against the perceived excesses of mainstream 70s rock. Bands like the Sex Pistols and The Clash used their music as a platform to challenge societal norms, addressing issues like poverty, political corruption, and social inequality. This rebellious spirit resonated with the youth, and the punk movement became a powerful force for social change. Moreover, British rock music had a profound influence on global music trends. From the United States to Japan, musicians worldwide were inspired by the inventive sounds and experimental techniques of British rock bands. This wave of influence fostered a global music community, with British rock at its helm. British rock music continued to be a force of cultural change, influencing everything from fashion to politics. As we delve into the legacy of British rock, we'll see just how far-reaching these influences were, and how they continue to resonate today. British rock music of the 60s and 70s laid the groundwork for decades of music to come. The influence of this era is undeniable, with its echoes reverberating throughout the soundscapes of contemporary music. The legacy of British rock is not confined to the borders of the United Kingdom. It's a global phenomenon, a universal language that transcends cultural and geographical barriers. From the gritty streets of New York to the sprawling metropolis of Tokyo, you'll find the fingerprints of British rock on the pulse of music scenes worldwide. Take a moment to consider the modern bands and artists who have been shaped by the sounds of British rock. Bands like Oasis, Radiohead, and Coldplay, who have drawn inspiration from their predecessors, blending classic rock elements with their unique styles to create music that resonates with audiences today. The influence doesn't stop at rock music. British rock has also left its mark on other genres. Think about the punk movement of the late 70s, the new wave of the 80s, or the Britpop phenomenon of the 90s. Each of these movements owes a debt to the pioneering spirit of British rock. Even today, the impact of British rock can be felt in the music industry. Emerging artists across the globe continue to draw inspiration from the iconic sounds of British rock, molding it into their own unique expressions of creativity. And it's not just about the music. The cultural impact of British rock extends to fashion, film, and popular culture. From the iconic mod look of the 60s to the glam rock style of the 70s, British rock has always been about more than just the music. It's a lifestyle, an attitude, a rebellion against the status quo. From the 60s to the 70s and beyond, British rock music has left an indelible mark on the world. Thanks for joining us on this journey through the golden age of British rock. Until next time, this has been another Terry McMusic video.